This is starting to feel like a real divide inside Steelers Nation, and it's happening faster than anyone expected. Right now, there is a growing group of Pittsburgh Steelers fans who are ready to hand the starting quarterback job to Will Howard. Not next year, not after a competition. Right now, but inside the organization, that urgency simply does not exist. The Steelers are still facing a major issue heading into the 2026 season. They do not have a confirmed starting quarterback. That uncertainty has naturally led fans to look for answers already on the roster, and Howard has quickly become the name many are rallying behind. The excitement is understandable. His final season at Ohio State was an undeniable success. He led the Buckeyes to a national championship, proved he could win on a massive stage, and demonstrated leadership in high-pressure situations. But as much as college success fuels optimism, it does not automatically translate to the NFL. That's where the reality check begins. Bob Labriola, writing recently for Steelers.com, addressed what he described as a growing love affair between Steelers fans and Howard. He did not hold back. He pointed out that while Howard may know what it's like to win in college, until Northwestern and Illinois are added to the AFC North, or until Howard at least makes it through an NFL preseason, handing him the keys to the franchise would be premature. He even went further, questioning whether this Steelers nationwide love affair would survive Howard's first multi-interception game, or even his first multi-interception practice in pads at St. Vincent College. That's a powerful statement, and it highlights the core issue here: projection versus proof. Howard is an accomplished NCAA quarterback. No one can take that away from him. Winning a national championship at Ohio State carries weight. It speaks to poise, preparation, and performance under national spotlight. But every year, dozens of quarterbacks impress at the college level. Every year, only a small fraction successfully transition into long-term NFL starters. And here's the part many fans are overlooking. Howard hasn't even taken a snap in an NFL game in a Steelers uniform. Not one. He is entering just his second year. He is still completely unproven at this level. There is a massive difference between leading the Buckeyes on Saturdays and facing the weekly complexity, speed, and defensive disguises of the AFC North on Sundays. Despite that, the confidence from some corners of the fan base is unwavering. There's a belief that he is the solution, that he is ready, that the team should stop searching and simply commit. Inside the building, however, the Steelers' actions suggest something very different. The organization has made its intention clear. They are looking to add to the quarterback room. That alone tells you they are not prepared to simply turn everything over to Howard. The more realistic path for both the team and the young quarterback appears to be patience. One scenario gaining traction is the possibility of bringing back Aaron Rodgers or signing another veteran to serve as the #1 quarterback. In that structure, Howard would spend another year watching, learning, and absorbing the NFL from the sidelines as the primary backup. A full, healthy season of preparation without being thrown into immediate pressure could set him up to legitimately compete for the starting job in 2027 and beyond. That approach would allow him to develop without the emotional roller coaster that often comes with. Rushing young quarterbacks onto the field, it would give the Steelers stability in the short term and clarity in the long term. But there is also a second scenario, and this is the one that might unsettle many fans. It's entirely possible the Steelers do not view Howard as a long-term solution at all. They could see him as depth, as a developmental piece, as someone further down the depth chart without a defined path to becoming the face of the franchise. If that's the case, the organization's reluctance makes even more sense, but it would be a nightmare scenario for those who already see him as the future. So now we're left at a crossroads. On one side, a passionate fan base eager for a fresh start and convinced that a national champion deserves his shot. On the other, a front office signaling caution, experience, and competition rather than immediate commitment. The truth is, this situation is far from settled. The Steelers still have to solve the starting quarterback position for 2026. They still have moves to make, and until preseason snaps are taken and depth charts are finalized, everything remains fluid. But here's the real question for you. Are the Steelers being smart and patient with Will Howard, or are they risking missing out on something special by not trusting him sooner? Because if we're being completely honest, this isn't just about Will Howard. This is about how the Steelers want to define the next phase of the franchise. When you look at the organization's history, the Steelers have rarely operated out of emotion. They are methodical, they are deliberate, they value stability, and right now, their hesitation to immediately elevate Howard suggests they do not want to gamble on projection alone. They want evidence. They want to see how he handles NFL speed, NFL complexity, and NFL adversity before placing the weight of the franchise on his shoulders. Think about what Labriola hinted at when he questioned whether the love affair would survive a multi-interception game. That's not a random example. In the NFL, adversity comes quickly and publicly. A bad quarter becomes a week-long debate. A 2 no-interception game becomes a national storyline. A rough preseason practice at St. Vincent College suddenly shifts the tone of an entire fan base. The margin for patience shrinks dramatically once a quarterback is officially labeled the guy. Right now, Howard is protected from that. He exists in the space of potential, and potential is powerful. It allows fans to imagine the best-case scenario without confronting the growing pains that almost always come with development. Once he steps on the field as QB1, that protection disappears. The Steelers understand that. If they bring back Aaron Rodgers or sign another veteran to start, it accomplishes several things at once. First, it buys time. Time for Howard to process NFL defenses, time to refine his mechanics against pro-level speed, time to adjust to the complexity of weekly game plans. Second, it protects the locker room from instability. Veteran quarterbacks often command respect immediately, something a second-year player with no NFL snaps still has to earn. But here's the flip side, and this is where the tension builds. If Howard spends another season strictly observing, the clock doesn't stop. The 2026 season still moves forward. Decisions still have to be made. If the team continues adding veterans, if they continue looking externally for answers, at what point does that signal they don't truly believe he's the future? That's the nightmare scenario some fans fear. Not that he fails, not that he throws interceptions, but that he never truly gets the opportunity at all. And this is why the conversation feels so intense right now. Because there's a difference between developing a quarterback and shelving one. There's a difference between patience and hesitation. Howard's college resume proves he can win. It proves he can operate in big environments. But as Labriola correctly emphasized, the NFL is a different ecosystem. Dozens of quarterbacks dominate Saturdays, only a few survive Sundays long term. The Steelers are not ignoring his success, they're questioning how quickly it should translate into responsibility. So now the organization faces a strategic decision. Do they accelerate the process and let him compete openly for the starting role? Do they maintain the current cautious approach and secure a veteran buffer? Or do they quietly keep him deeper on the depth chart, signaling something far more concerning about their internal evaluation? What makes this even more fascinating is that the team's public stance has already hinted at their direction. Their intention to add to the quarterback group isn't subtle. It's a message. Competition is coming. And competition tells you everything about where they stand. The Steelers aren't closing the door on Will Howard, but they aren't handing him the keys either. And that leaves us with the defining question of this entire situation moving forward. When preseason arrives and the depth chart starts to take shape, will the organization's caution prove wise, or will Steelers Nation look back and say the opportunity to build around Howard was right there all along? And the deeper you look at this situation, the clearer it becomes that the Steelers are walking a very delicate line between development and direction. Because once the organization commits publicly to a starting quarterback, everything shifts. The messaging changes, the locker room dynamics change, the expectations explode. Right now, they still have flexibility. If they move forward with a veteran as the starter in 2026, they control the narrative. They can frame it as mentorship. They can emphasize stability. They can point to experience in a division that demands it. The AFC North is not forgiving. Defensive schemes are complex. Pass rushes are relentless. Every single week feels like playoff intensity. Throwing an unproven second-year quarterback into that environment without a safety net is not a small decision. At the same time, there's risk in waiting too long. Quarterback development isn't just about watching from the sideline. It's about live reps. It's about feeling real pressure. It's about throwing a pass after you've just made a mistake and hearing 60,000 people react. There are lessons that film studies simply cannot replicate. If Howard truly has franchise-level potential, delaying his exposure could slow his growth. This is why the internal evaluation matters more than anything. The coaching staff sees him every day. They see how he processes information. They see how he responds to corrections. They see whether he commands the huddle. They see how veterans react to him. Those are details fans don't have access to, and those details likely drive the organization's caution. Another factor here is emotional momentum. Fan support can elevate a player quickly, but it can also turn just as fast. Labriola's warning about the love affair possibly fading after a multi-interception performance isn't just commentary, it's a reminder of how quickly perception shifts in this league. The same fans demanding he start could be the ones questioning him after a rough stretch. And that pressure doesn't just impact the quarterback, it impacts the coaching staff, it impacts the front office. If the Steelers rush the decision and it goes poorly, the the criticism won't stop at the player. But here's something else to consider. The organization has not dismissed Howard. They haven't labeled him a backup-only player. They haven't shut down the conversation. They've simply resisted urgency. That distinction matters. It suggests they want competition. They want clarity earned, not gifted. If Howard is truly the future, the Steelers may believe he should prove it in practice, in preseason, and eventually in controlled opportunities before taking over fully. In their view, that might not be doubt, it might be due diligence. Still, the uncertainty keeps the debate alive, because until the depth chart is finalized and the first snap of 2026 is taken, this remains unresolved. The Steelers have to solve the quarterback position. Fans want a direction, the organization wants assurance. And that's why this story isn't going away anytime soon. Training camp will be watched closely. Every preseason throw will be analyzed. Every rep in pads at St. Vincent College will be magnified. And whether the team leans toward a veteran presence or gradually opens the door wider for Howard, the signs will be there. This is bigger than one player. It's about the identity of the next era. Is it built on patience and structure, or bold belief in youth? The Steelers are calculating their move carefully. The fans are ready for action. And somewhere between those two realities lies the answer that will define 2026. What makes this entire situation even more complex is timing. The Steelers are not operating in a vacuum. Every move they delay, every decision they postpone, shapes the roster around the quarterback position. Free agency, draft planning, offensive scheme adjustments, all of it depends on who they ultimately believe will be under center. If they lean toward a veteran again, the offensive structure likely remains more controlled, more experience-driven. Protection schemes may prioritize short-term efficiency. Play calling may reflect trust and recognition, and adjustment at the line of scrimmage. That's one path. If they eventually pivot to Will Howard, whether in 2026 or beyond, the design could shift. Younger quarterbacks often bring mobility, adaptability, and a different rhythm to the offense. But those adjustments only happen when there's organizational conviction. Right now, conviction has not been declared, and that's what keeps the tension alive inside the fan base. Because when there is no declared direction, imagination fills the gap. Supporters start projecting. Some believe this is simply a redshirt year approach. Others worry it's a quiet indication that Howard is not viewed internally as a long-term solution. The truth likely sits somewhere in between. It's important to remember that being cautious with a young quarterback does not automatically mean a lack of belief. The NFL is filled with examples of players who've benefited from watching early. There is value in observing how a veteran prepares during a short week. There is value in understanding defensive disguises without the immediate burden of reacting in real time. There is value in physical development and mastering terminology without the spotlight. But there is also a competitive reality inside that locker room. Players want clarity, receivers want chemistry, offensive linemen want consistency in cadence and communication. The longer the starting role feels unsettled, the more pressure builds internally for resolution. And here's another layer. Once the Steelers officially declare a starter, they are committing to a direction that extends beyond a single season. If they move forward with a veteran again, that signals short-term competitiveness as the priority. If they elevate Howard, it signals long-term growth as the focus. That distinction matters for expectations. If a veteran starts and the team struggles, the conversation quickly